Thank you. I have to wander around while I talk, okay? So, and that comes from my father was raised in West Texas, and he said, boy, in Texas, it's best if you're a moving target. So, I kept that in my mind. If you cannot see this screen, this is your handout. So if you can't see that and you can't read it, you might want to move to a place where you can. And I'll leave that up to you. Just don't complain to me, please. And the reason I'm using this, Science of Mind, S-O-M, Science of Mind Foundation.org, SOMfoundation.org, is because everything I know is on this website. Well, everything I know about plan giving is on this website, and everything you might need to know is on this website. So I don't do PowerPoints, I don't do handouts. So this is it. Anybody doesn't have access to the internet or a computer, you can go to your local library or probably come into the center and you will get access. So that's the world we live in. And I hope you can adapt to that. Because I have fully adapted to it and I'm not going back. The Science of Mind Foundation, quick commercial. Were you waving at me? Or?
No,
okay.
it's good.
The Science of Mind Foundation was created in 2009, but it is a continuation of an organization that was in UCRS, Religious Science. And John mentioned Ken Lin. Ken Lin is still active. He's on our tithe committee at the foundation. But he created vast wealth for UCRS, for CSL, for the Science of Mind Foundation, by doing things like this. And by putting ads in the Science of Mind magazine that said, you know, you can create a bequest, you can create an annuity, you can create all these different kinds of tools in your estate planning that are going to do good things for you and good things for our movement. We stand on the shoulders of those that have gone before us. And I'll tell you, Ken is some pretty tall shoulders for all of us, Steve Burton, the young man John mentioned earlier, did a calculation in his mind of the dollars that came to the organization in a time when they were not saving the money. And I'm all about saving money. And it was $9 million. Okay. Once they came to the consensus, once CSL came to the consensus that they were going to start saving money and putting 90% or 100% of those dollars away into the Science of Mind Foundation, and that was only really about 8 years ago. Since that time, we've created a permanent endowment of almost $2 million. Okay. So the dollars will flow. Okay. They will flow. Matter of fact, you can't stop them. There are people in here that have this center in their will and they haven't told anybody. I absolutely guarantee it.
God bless you.
Well, bless you all, because I don't know who it is. Okay? So we're going to be talking a little bit about that when we get to this spot. Don't go to it yet, but when we get to this spot about bequests and bequest language, we're going to talk about how you can help your center, CSL, Science of Mind Foundation, your family, your friends, other organizations. This is not just a commercial for me. Okay? But you read the documents that, and you heard the promotions about this, but I'd like, because I know what I have offered, but that may be not be what you're here for. So does anybody want to volunteer why they're here and what they're expecting? Am I done? No.
I would like to update my will since there are changes that have happened in my life.
Update your will, okay?
an experience with someone giving bequests, but doing it in such a way that it ended up going through probate court for years.
Was it contested?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I just want to know where to start.
You're here.
What's the best way to give money, if you did, to the
After?
After.
Because I know the answer to before.
I'm sorry.
That's it.
Yeah.
Write me a check. I actually had a guy that was very wealthy ask me, what can I do to reduce the size of my estate? Because he was worried that his estate was going to be taxable. And what's the level of taxation that you, or the level of value you have to reach in this country to have your estate taxed? Does anybody know?
$1.
Actually, it's a pretty progressive law, believe it or not. It's a little over $5 million, okay? But he was worried. He didn't want the government to get any of his money, and he said, what should I do to lower my value of my estate? And I said, well, do you have any cash? He said, yeah. I said, do you have any stocks? Yeah. He said, do you have real estate? Yeah. I said, do you have any shares in your company? Yeah. I said, do you have a life insurance policy? Yeah. I said, you got an IRA? Yeah. I said, give it all away. Give it all away. And your estate will drop to zero, and you won't be taxed. That's a very easy solution, right?
You just drop it to just below 5 million
Yeah.
and give the rest away. Thank you, God bless you.
But he was amazed by that because he had absolutely no intention of giving it away. I did manage to help him give $500,000 away to our organization, and he did the same thing for several other organizations in what's called a charitable remainder unit trust, the details of which we may get to at the end of this. Yes.
Well, if you give it all away to various organizations, then they're going to be taxed, aren't they?
No, not if they're nonprofits.
That's the thing. That's what we want to know.
And actually most bequests. And we are very lucky. Pete, stand up.
Thank you.
We are very lucky to have an attorney licensed, a friend of yours, licensed in the state of North Carolina to save me when I say stupid things. Okay?
He is the center's attorney, Pete Henry.
Thanks for giving your time today. And if you can stop me before I say something stupid, I'd really appreciate it.
Could you introduce Ann?
Did I introduce?
Could you assist last name?
Could you introduce Ann Johnson next to him?
Ann Johnson. I'm sorry. Thank you for being here.
Paralegal, and I also work for an estate planning attorney.
So you have lots and lots of expertise right here. You don't need the guy from Colorado. Well, you need me a little bit, but you don't need me a lot. Yeah.
So just going back to what you were
Yeah.
asking, you used the word trust a few moments ago. So are you going to address the revocable trust, or anything as part of wills, or just wills?
Sure. That'll be a little bit later on. Are you talking about a living trust?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we'll get to that. So, I said in celebration today that we're all going to transition. And we are. And we have an opportunity to plan for a lot of things, and we can do that now. And those of you who haven't done it, I understand. I understand that it's a little daunting. Okay? And so I'm giving you the freedom to be a little bit put off by the whole legal effort that you have to do just to be sure that the things that you want done with your stuff, okay, money, real estate, cars, shoes, I mean, you know, the things that baffle a lot of families are the things that nobody said anything about. In my family, it was a set of really worthless crystal. My mother bought it at a fire sale, and she only bought it because she bought the cabinet it was in. She didn't even want the crystal, but they said, well, you get to go. I don't know, $85 or something. We're talking about 1980 here. Okay? But my sisters, first of all, they were pretty surprised that their little brother was made executor of my mother's estate. And we got through most everything according to what Mom wanted because she did a good job of planning it. And she had real estate, some stocks. And she had a stack of mining stock like this that my dad had bought in the late 40s. Absolutely worthless. But she kept it because it was his. I looked for a long time because I thought maybe I was a millionaire. Gold mines in New Hampshire or something. He made a mistake or two, but he tried. And my sisters used that crystal to work through their grief that they had lost a mother. Very young. Matter of fact, I'm the age now that she was when she died. So way too early, way too early. And this really relatively worthless hunk of pieces of glass became contentious in that it was not described in any document that she provided. And I did occasionally ask her, what do you want to do with all this stuff that you accumulated? Curios, keepsakes, things that mean something emotionally but have financially really no value. So they fought about it. And I let it go for a little while. And finally said, you know what, you two figure it out. And whatever you want to do, whatever you both agree to, and please put it in writing, whatever you agree to, I'll sign off on. Okay? And they got together. And they figured it out. Right? But it would have been a whole lot easier on them and on me if my mom had said, everything that's not on this list, take it to Goodwill and get rid of it. Don't burden anybody with it. Or, you know what? Mary gets the crystal. Or Mary gets everything that's in the house. Or something that would have taken that tension and that family stuff out of the question. So they agreed that they were going to ship the crystal back and forth twice a year. 5 states. Anybody want to guess how many times that crystal got shipped? 1 time. But they got to process their grief. So in the midst of all of this, I would just say, remember that in a time, and boy, I bet you've seen it, both of you, in a time when an estate is settling, there is also grief going on. Okay? And you have to let that process. You have to let that process. And if it's the grief they're feeling for the loss of you, there's a lot you can do to ease it. And I would say, this is your chance to get the material things out of the way of that process. So that's my final plea, to get it done. Okay? Get her done. Get a will written. Make it as complete as you feel like you can. Okay? Now, I promised that I was going to give you some tools to get started. And we're going to answer most of these questions, and if not, I can answer them later. But if you could go down to these buttons that are ringed in gold here. Look at that Give Today button. I wonder what that's about. Not that one. We'll scroll down. There you go. The first one we're going to look at is this free estate planning guide. I'm sorry, I'm not being very clear, am I? That's okay. Read my mind. You'll get it. So, free estate planning guide. This is a workbook 60-some pages of workbook. Does that scare you a little bit? It's a lot of stuff. But a lot of it is empty space because it'll ask you a question, and if you say no, you're done with that page. Okay? It doesn't affect me. But it's going to ask you every question that you ought to be asked or you ought to be asking yourself. Okay? That's for the people who like paper and like to work on paper. And you can take that document with you when you go to your attorney, and that attorney will have a lot of information that they would probably have asked you. And you will already have the conversation with yourself, okay, to write that down. Some attorneys have something like this, that when you first talk to them, they'll say, well, why don't you take this and work on it? Okay? Or we can go through it together. You'll save money if you do it yourself and really think through it. Okay? But attorneys are real valuable, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. And then there's this one, which is create your plan. You can click on that now. This is an online space that is free, professionally designed, complete with videos that are 2 to 3 minutes long. Okay? And you go here to this, don't go ahead, don't do it, but you go to create a new account, and you pick put in your email address, that'll be your username, and you pick a password, and then you come back out here and you log in. Okay? And it starts taking you through the same things that the book takes you through. The difference is it saves it. And it's there for you. Now, it's authenticated, it's secured. I can't see it. Unless you invite me to see it. I can't see it. The people who host this estate for us, who are the giftlegacy.com people, can't see it. Okay? It's protected. It's your information. Okay? Because it's going to form the basis of your will or your living trust, your estate plan. Okay? So you can feel safe in using that. You can go in, you can answer the questions, you can fill in bequest, you can fill in all kinds of information about how you want to distribute your estate, and we'll walk through some of this. And you can save it. And then you can go back in and change it as many times as you like. Okay? Then you can print it out in a PDF and take it to your attorney. Does that sound handy? That's a pretty cool deal. I'm sorry. Now, your question.
Is the create your plan the same thing as what you get in the estate planning guide?
Essentially, yes. The difference is when you're done with create your plan, you're done with this, you're going to have a document that's maybe 2 or 3 pages long. It's a distillation of all of those questions. It's going to be easy to understand and take. It's well organized. Whereas if you take the whole book that you wrote in, it's about 60 pages.
If you kept it updated and you printed it out and you don't take it to an attorney, is there going to be problems then, or would that add?
It is not a will.
Okay.
It is not a will. Now, some people say LegalZoom or Intuit has a will maker program. I'm going to let the attorney talk about that in a little bit. That's a great way to start. Okay? And once you get started, it's pretty easy to get through this process. You're kind of over the hurdle once you get started and get all this stuff recorded. Okay? So I'm going to have you log into, yes?
In regards to the 2 buttons, when you fill out the first one, when it's totally filled out, is that when you hit the create your plan and it prints it out on the 2 or 3 page thing?
No.
No.
Okay.
These are 2 completely different processes.
Okay.
This is a document. Go ahead and click that again. You're going to fill that out and scroll it down a little bit. And once you fill it out, and here's my marketing trick, I'm going to need your name and email, okay? Because I'm going to fill your inbox every day with many, many emails being given. I'm going to spam you for the rest of your life, and you will not be able to escape me, but you'll have this download. And then you can print it out, or save it, or save it. And if you have a software that you can actually write in a PDF, you'll be able to do it electronically. No, I do have a newsletter about plan giving techniques where we share tips and tricks about creating a good estate plan, and you'll be put on that list. That's what the email is for. You can unsubscribe at any time. Okay? Online immediately. Okay? So I won't have you in my clutches for long. And so that's one whole process. So you take that book to the attorney. And then if you do it online, which is this one, then you print it out. Okay? You can move that information over into another program. It won't go automatically, but you can put it in, or you can take it to your attorney. Okay? So let's go back, and I'm going to use the Create Your Plan, and we're going to log in as me, just so you can see some of the questions you're going to have to face and how they're going to be presented to you. I'm going to whisper my username and password here. It's my email address, K. Williams. There you go. At, guess what, SOMfoundation.org. If I were smart, I'd have done this ahead of time. And it's capital A, ND, 7B,
5L6. We missed that last part. 5LB, was it?
I do.
She's going to be selling that later.
Yes. The GoFundMe.
casual. I didn't know it was going to be this casual. Okay. So did y'all get my password?
We got it.
I'm going to be overly trusting. Each one of these sections are things that you need to think about. You know, this section didn't used to be here. Your healthcare stuff. Why has that become necessary? It's not really part of a will.
We're living longer, and if you're incapacitated.
Incapacitated. You need a living will or a healthcare proxy
Durable power of attorney.
as much as you need a will. Right? Because if you're incapacitated in any time when you're in the care of our healthcare system, and you want to tell them what you want your care to be like, and you're incapacitated, and you need somebody who's designated to do that for you. And that's one of the things you're going to do in here. Now you can skip that section, and there's lots of other websites and lots of ways you can determine who you would like to make healthcare decisions for you if you're incapacitated. But that's really the choice you're making here, and it's very important. It's very important. Somebody asked me in our session last night, said something about the amount of money spent on health care at the end of life. Does anybody remember those numbers?
More in the last month. More in the last month than
40%
yeah.
of Medicare dollars in America are spent on people in the last month of their life. And anybody here work in healthcare? All right. I'm going to tread in some dangerous territory here. Healthcare knows that, okay? And they are really good at providing that care. They may provide care for you that you don't want if you don't tell them you don't want it. It's up to you. They're going to do what they think is right, and But you may be in a situation where you don't want something and you have to say that. Okay? So anyway, so that's why they put that in here. Everybody will recommend that you have that done. So enough about that. I can talk about that for a long time. So let's hit that you and your family section. These numbers are fictitious. Some of the people are not. Okay? But all this asks you to do is to, in every one of these is a blank that you fill in. Now, hit that edit this section. You can kind of get a look at it. Okay? So you can see that all I did was go in here and put in who I am. And there I hit yes, I have children, and I'm married. And that triggers them to ask me the other questions about, okay, who are those people? Okay. So that's how the thing works. And you need to answer all that. Go hit save and next. So now you're seeing my wife. And hit save and next. Now you're starting to see the kids. Okay? And it's tracking how you're doing here. Okay? Like I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. Okay? So at one point, and here's your question, it's going to ask you, do you need a living trust or a will? Does anybody know the difference between a living trust and a will? I know you do.
I know what a revocable is what you're talking about.
Revocable living trust.
A revocable living trust makes the death of the spouse a lot easier because there's no probate.
Right. That's one of the benefits of it.
Couldn't you repeat
A revocable living trust or a living trust, and you two correct me if I get this wrong, does a couple of things for you. And the outcome is that it makes it easier to manage the property of the person who has died, particularly if it's in joint tenancy. So what I do when I create a living trust is I essentially put everything that has a title, like my home, I put it in that trust. Okay? And that way when I die, the trust owns it. Okay? And whoever the trustee is, my wife, but you shoot me, my wife can immediately deal with that. She can get it into her name, or she can do what I would have wanted her to do, which I would. It's just like a will in that I put my instructions in it, but it creates a separate legal entity for my stuff so that two things happen. Now, correct me about North Carolina, but in Colorado and a lot of states, when you have a living trust, it's private. It's not public information. A will in those states is public information. And the heirs that are listed, public information. And how much they got, it's public information. Some of us don't want people to know that. Okay? It's not easy to find, but it's public information. Living trust. A trust is not public information. That's one benefit. The other one is it doesn't go through probate. So you don't pay probate fees on that. So, yes. Yes. And means you can revoke it. You can change it. It's not necessarily permanent. You can change it, you can close it, or the trustee can close it. Yes?
So, would there be any reason at all to have a will? Why wouldn't you just go and why wouldn't you?
Some people need something very, very simple. Some people don't want to go to the expense and the trouble of that. And they figure, well, I'm dead, I don't care this season.
So, if you're going to go to an attorney, would you just ask for a living trust?
I'm going to ask the attorney. What do you recommend?
Actually, if I may.
Yes?
I almost always recommend a will rather than a trust. Particularly, thank you.
Is that on?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Particularly in North Carolina, if you are married and if you have planned how you own your real estate, the real estate's going to pass outside of probate regardless.
Really?
It will not be part of your probate estate. That's always the biggest thing.
What about if you're not married and you leave it to your children?
If you leave it to your children when you are not married, then it will go through probate. But typically, having something go through probate it's not the end of the world. It's not that complex a process, particularly in North Carolina. The fees are not particularly high. And in all candor, it very often is actually more expensive to do things via trust than it is through probate.
So it comes down to essentially real estate is the determinant of whether to choose a will in North Carolina it is.
No, I wouldn't say that just real estate ownership is the determining factor. I think there are many more factors. Each situation is individual. There are ownership of lots of other assets that can influence that decision. But unless there is a very good reason to move from a will into a trust, it is typically easier and more expedient to use a will.
So it's faster.
It is faster typically.
Could you all repeat the question that a person has, because I can't hear the question, and so then when you're answering, I don't know what you're answering.
Certainly.
Thank you.
And I don't want to overstep my bounds.
Pete, I'm getting on an airplane tonight. I'm going to be gone. You're going to be left here. So this is great.
Explain probate.
The question was explain probate. And over time, I've spent a lot of time trying to figure out how it's the easiest to explain the probate process. And anecdotally, I grew up not far outside of New York City. And when I was a kid, I used to always hear a lot about money laundering. And I didn't really understand what that meant or what it was about. The way I like to explain probate is that what it does is it takes an asset that currently doesn't have an owner. That owner is deceased. We don't really have anyone who owns it. It's putting it through a process by which we now have an owner. A very crude parallel, you're laundering money. It's a legal process for laundering money so we have an actual owner. And, that's a crude parallel, but nevertheless, it gives you the idea.
No, I understand laundering money. That's right.
I figured that's one everybody can get.
I have a question that's probably more for Ken. Following your script on your thing, how do you exactly deal with a domestic partner if you're not legally married? It's not an option anymore.
I would put him in as my partner.
I suppose.
In every state, marriage rights are a little different. Okay? And you've just seen a really good demonstration of why I recommend you see an attorney with your will. I'm not an attorney, and I'm not an accountant. I've been doing this kind of stuff for a long time, so I know a bunch, but not everything. And I can't possibly know everything about every state. Okay? And there are lots of good attorneys in North Carolina. Okay? One of them's right here. Okay? So I would say, if you're using this is not a legal document, so put them in there. Okay? And say what you want them to have. That's really what all of these documents are, identifying the folks and the organizations that you want to get stuff, and making sure you know who they are, okay? And how they can be found and identified. Yes, sir?
This would be more towards Keith. Here in North Carolina, I discovered a couple of years ago when you bought property that married, you buy property, the spouse has to be on the deed as well. So my question is, if you don't do anything, many people assume this, that because another spouse is paying the title, you don't have a will or anything, it automatically come. Is that true?
Okay. The question was that if you and a spouse own a piece of real estate together, does it automatically pass to the surviving spouse without a will? In the simplest form, the answer is yes. There's a particular type of ownership of real estate that is designated for married couples. It's called a tenancy by the entireties. What that means is that, in effect, the marriage owns this piece of property. The marriage is not one individual or the other individual, it's the couple. So when one spouse dies, there's nothing that needs to be done because the other spouse already owns 100% of the property. You both own 100% of the property. I would hedge a little bit because there are ways around that. But as long as your deed says, and husband, and wife, spouses, then you have created a tenancy by the entireties definitively, and that property will pass outside of the will as long as, well, until the second spouse passes away. Yes.
What if a married couple has one child, and that's the only heir, and they own property, and the child's name is also on the property, on the deed? Does it automatically go to the child when the two people pass?
Okay, the question was if a married couple owns a piece of property with their child, who's a single child, the only child, does the property automatically pass to that child upon the couple's death? The answer is no, it does not. That tenancy by the entireties is only available for married couples. It does not apply to children.
Is that also called joint tenancy?
The question was, is that also called a joint tenancy? No, a joint tenancy is something different. Joint tenancy is available for non-married couples. A lot of these terms are very frequently pushed around, and they do have specific meanings. But no, a joint tenancy is not the same thing as a tenancy by the entireties.
Tenancy by the what?
Entireties. Yes.
I don't have a spouse nor children, and if I were to expire, am I allowed to put a beneficiary anyone I choose?
Okay, the question was if you have no spouse or no children, can you choose any beneficiary? The answer is absolutely yes. And I will go further than that and say that if you are married and have children, you can still do whatever you like with your property outside of an entireties property.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Can you have both a will and a trust? Is there benefit to that? And if so, which document takes a higher precedence in court of law?
Okay. The question was, can you have both a will and a trust, and which would take precedent if it went to court? The answer is absolutely yes. Very frequently, well, not very frequently, but certainly with some regularity, wills will create a trust. It's called a testamentary trust. You can have both devices. You can have a will that is going to pass along certain assets and a trust that will pass along other assets. They don't necessarily run on the same track. And the question over priority is much more complex because you start getting into timing of creation, what they're created to do, and what has been done prior to the person dying. So that's not a question that I can answer without kind of fleshing out facts.
I'm going to step in and ask us to, first of all, those are all great questions, and I think they all got great answers, so thanks. I'm going to try to finish this little section about showing you some of the things you're going to face as you go through all these questions at not quite that level of detail, and just say that those are the conversations that you might really need an attorney for. Your special circumstance, which we got a lot of special circumstances here today, and we're not going to be able to deal with all of those if I am going to make my claim tonight. So, could you go down to the bottom of this right quick, just scroll down here, because I want to point this out about special needs or challenges that need to be addressed in the will. Okay? If you have one of those children or someone else that you want to take care of, this is a good place to do that. Okay? A good place to plan to do that. And you may be establishing a separate trust for that person so that they can be taken care of by somebody else after you expire. Okay? And now this is the time when somebody asks, what about my dog?
Yeah.
Okay. Go to the American Humane Association. They will write you a trust about your dog. Okay? And they will do it for you. And they will write what's called a remainder trust. And they will write you that trust. And when the dog has finished following in your footsteps, the remainder of trust will go to the Humane Association. Okay? And that's my solution for every animal that you want to protect that way. Yes?
What's a trust?
A trust is a legal entity that exists outside of a person, but is managed by a person or persons. Now, that's the comic book version, because I'm the comic book guy, okay? But it is something that you write up and sign and you create and you submit it to the court, and it's recorded, okay, as a legal entity. It even has an tax identification number, because some trusts are taxable, some are not. Okay? It all depends on how you write it.
So we create it.
You create it. It's a creative act. Yes?
Is that entity considered a corporation?
No. Okay, so I just wanted to say that. Let's go to estate planning background. All right, there. We're going to jump ahead a little bit. You can just click on that, I think, and it'll take you to it. This is where it asks you what you've done, okay? So that when you talk to somebody about your plan, and you know, a will is or a living trust. I use those terms interchangeably because they perform the same function within your estate plan. Your estate plan can actually be bigger than your will, okay? You might use trusts, or you might use other things to get those goals accomplished. Like if you want to give money to your grandchildren, or if you want to do certain kinds of charitable trusts. And what you're trying to do with all of that, all of this stuff, is to get to these things. What are your estate planning goals? Go ahead and click on that. Because if we spend all our time on the details, we're not going to get to the big picture. Okay? So this is really a great thing to talk about. And your attorney's really going to want to talk to you about this stuff. Because if it doesn't come out the way you want it, okay, then, you know, you've done a lot of work and you didn't get what you wanted. And so we have a mindset, I want to get what I want. Here's how you identify what it is. So what is estate shrinkage? You want to minimize estate shrinkage. We'll go through these real quick. Anybody know? You don't want your estate, you don't want to run out of money before you die. How's that? How's that? Okay, so you want to minimize that. I'm in the middle there. You want to reduce estate taxes. Anybody courageous enough to say, I think my estate's going to be taxable? Okay? If you think your estate's going to be taxable, then there are a lot of...
My state's gonna be taxable, you bet. I'm gonna think that.
She's just gonna do it loudly.
All right. Well, I'll tell you, if you own real estate and you're working and you're saving, it might surprise you where you might be in terms of having a taxable estate. And you know what? Laws change. Laws change. We've seen the taxable estate number go up and down over the decades, okay? Congress, in all their wisdom and whimsy, can change that, okay? So, if you're interested in that, there are some things you can do. They're a little more complicated, and you can always give it all away. Okay? These are the jokes. Stay with me. Do you want to increase current income? Can your estate actually, can an estate plan actually increase your current income? Yes, you can. There are things you can do that convert assets to income, assets in a charitable way. Guardianship for minor children. Oh my, I don't have any minor children anymore. Okay? You might. So, my will that I rewrote a few years ago, the second will I wrote, I named a couple to take care of my children if something would happen to both my wife and I. Okay? I didn't need that when I rewrote that will. Create a charitable legacy. So let's talk about charitable legacy. When you think of the word legacy, what do you think? Law.
Future.
Future. Lasting.
Self-perpetuating.
Self-perpetuating.
Reputation.
Paying it forward.
Reputation.
Reputation. Your legacy is how you'll be remembered. And a charitable legacy is how your charitable behavior will be remembered and honored. So remember, I'm here about charitable estate planning. So I'm very interested in that. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So that's really important to me, so I mark that. And so when I go see Pete, he's going to say, what do you want to do in your charitable legacy? What do you want to do? You want to make bequests in your estate to charitable organizations? Is that what you want to do? I don't know. Or, you know what? You could combine this one with this one. Believe it or not. You combine that one with that one and create a legacy and increase your income per life. We can talk about that in the last part of the section. Okay? And do you want to sell your property tax-free? You can also do that in an estate plan. Okay? It may not be as important to you if you're not worried about this. Okay? Because it may flow tax-free to people anyway, okay? Even if you don't have it in a trust. Okay, and are there any other things you want your attorney to know about? Okay? So I wrote this here, and this is tough for me. I want to provide an equitable inheritance to all three of my children. And I use the word equitable instead of equal, because I got a problem with equal. I got to figure that out. So I'm going to ask my attorney about that next time I go in. I'm going to say, how can I do that? My major asset is a piece of real estate. And I don't believe in splitting a piece of real estate three ways. I don't think it works. I think I'm going to create dissension for all three of my kids. I can irritate them all at once. And maybe that's a father's job. I don't know. I've got to figure that out. So, and of course, my religious affiliation. Now, this section right here is probably your biggest asset. Provide and protect resources. Click on that. In here, for every one of these sections, there are articles. Here's one I like. Do you have a difficult family? Anybody have a difficult family? Does anybody not have a difficult family? Good for you. Okay? How to write your family letter for your memorial service. All kinds of great pieces of information here, and you may want to go read them all. I don't know, but you don't have to. They're just there for you. And for every one of these sections is information. Information will set you free. Okay? So I just wanted to point that out for you. So go ahead and return. Okay? And this one, notes to my attorney, you don't have to click it. That's a place, that's a free spot where you can write anything you want. Okay? All those questions, are there any other goals? You have a question that you want to make sure to remember to your attorney. If you put it in there, it'll be there when you get to your attorney and you won't have forgotten about it. Oh, I wanted to ask about that glassware. And this one is really fun. Now, I am a gift planner. People will say, what's a gift planner? I'm a gift planner. I work with people who are making charitable gifts, and I write a lot of trusts. Well, my attorney writes a lot of trusts for people who want that life income thing to happen for them. So we make that happen. So you can add an attorney here. You can add me if you want. You can add your minister under this if you want. Remember, only you can add people to see your site. Okay? And that's how you do it. Then click on that so you can see. Oh, I'm already there. So I added me here. That's why I'm there. Okay? So you put them in, and then you update the rights to say they can do that. Okay, so let's go. I tell you what, let's jump. Do you get it? Do you get what this site's going to do for you? It looks the same way. I can walk you through every one of these questions, but the truth is it's going to cause more and more and more questions, and I'm not going to be able to answer them all. So if you're feeling comfortable about having these two tools, let me know. Yeah. Yes, no? Okay, great. Then we can move on a little bit. Yes, sir?
There was a Wills Center button up on the upper right. Are you going to discuss that if you go back?
Go ahead and click that again, and I'll show you what that means. It's an, go ahead and go to down here, or just, you know what? Yeah. So go back to create your plan. All of these sections are the Wills Planning Center. Okay, so all that button does is take you back to this level. Okay, so it gets you back, so you can go back to any of these, because you can do this in any order. Okay, John's thing about, is it like that or is it like this? Okay. It's like this. Okay. This is how you create the PDF. When you're ready to print it out, you can print it out, read it, throw it away, shred it, do it again. Sir.
So basically, I go through this with everything that applies. Anything that doesn't, I make notes. I print it out. I take it to my attorney, and I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah. And then he writes your will for you, according to the laws of the state of North Carolina, knowing what he or she knows about the state of North Carolina. And you know what? This is my first visit to the state of North Carolina. I'll never be the same. And you know what? I have not had time to study the laws here. This guy has. And now you work in a law office. And is it a big firm, little firm? Okay. And that person is?
Cynthia Alleman.
Cynthia Alleman. Thank you. Okay, so let's go back out to the website, because this is one little section of it. And I want to talk to you, since we're at the end of the Get Her Done section. We're going to try to do the last two sections in the next hour. Are you all up for that? Mm-hmm. Are you sweating yet? Are you bored of tears?
I'm sweating. Would you review the address for this website? Is it SOMfoundation.org?
Yes, it's right there. Yeah, you don't need all this stuff.
Well, what do you
somfoundation.org. That's it. Oh, let me take a second to talk to you about this. That's why we're here. Right. So we're in this together. I just wanted to point that out. These stories are about people who have done planned gifts. And I confess that they're not all from our organization. But they're examples of how people have used a wide variety of gifts to give a wide variety of stuff to nonprofits. Okay? Because that's what the people who helped design this website are about. That's their expertise. And they have a gang of lawyers that make sure all of these things are correct. You can punch on that. Well, you can punch on that. We'll do this for about 30 seconds. Punch on calculators and then come back to this page. Okay? These are all, remember those complicated things that we're going to talk about? All of things are, if you go on the website and you say, I wonder what the heck that is. What's a deferred gift annuity, or what's a gift annuity? And you can push that red button and it's going to ask you to fill in some information about, and these are all about life income, by the way, converting non-performing assets into performing assets to provide income for you. And it'll run an illustration there. And those calculations are all correct if you put in the right information. And that's what their attorneys make sure are right, because they stand behind this stuff. Okay? So, go back up. There you go. Oh no. Did my mind just go blank? Or are we all here together? A bequest is a codicil, a sentence, whatever you want to call it. It's a small piece of your will, and it says, I hereby give to X person or organization something, like a percentage of my estate. Okay? So when John and Barbara were talking yesterday, but can I tell this story?
Sure. My life is an open book.
Wait a minute, what story?
Not that one. We met yesterday to talk about creating a legacy society for the center here that would welcome and honor and recognize anybody who made a decision to leave something to the center. And John and Barbara revealed at that time that they had rewritten their will, and they are leaving 10% of their estate to the center. They are tithing from their estate to the center. Okay? So that's an example, thank you. That's an example of the kind of thing you can do. Okay? Now, that can be in a long list of things. So we're going to talk about what you can give and how to give it. So there's a gift option. Okay? What to give. Click right there. What to give. Scroll down. There's a lot of things you can give. Lots of different kinds of things that you can give. Okay? And not just a charity. You can give, you can make somebody a beneficiary of your life insurance. It's not in your estate. Not taxable. Would never be taxable at any amount. You can do that in percentages. Okay? Cash is pretty easy. Okay? Retirement assets, your IRA, you can make somebody, even a nonprofit, a beneficiary of your IRA, just like you can leave your son or daughter or spouse or anybody else a beneficiary of your IRA. Those are two really easy ways to do it. You fill out a form with the company that manages it for you. It's done. Okay? Real estate's a little more complicated. I'm working with a lady in Florida right now who's going to leave her retirement home to her center.
Thank you.
Not that hard. Not that hard. Well, you know, there are a lot of people in this country who either don't feel like they need to leave their home to somebody, but they'd really like to live in it. They'd like to keep it for a long time, okay? And there are ways to do that. There are ways to do that. There are ways to live in your home, stay in your home until you die, okay? And then have it go to your center when you're done. Yeah.
From the viewpoint of the center, what is the best way or best thing to leave them that is easiest? Would it be cash?
Well, cash is always the easiest, okay? But we don't all have cash. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. That's all I'm trying to point out here is if you can think about it, you can probably do it. I would say one thing. When you leave something to somebody or some organization, when you make a bequest to them, please don't make it a burden, okay? Don't make it an additional burden to that organization. Don't make it something that they can't really use, don't need, or don't want. But for example, if you happen to be the owner of a lead paint factory, please don't leave it to your nonprofit, okay? Because they're going to have to turn it down, and then what's going to happen, okay? You don't want to put people in that position. So just be conscious about things like that. I don't imagine many of you own lead paint factories, but you might own a gas station. You've almost got the same situation if you're not up with all the regulations. So sometimes it's much easier to direct to the estate to sell that property and then give a percentage of the estate to the center. So yes, cash is always nice. Cash is a very loving gift. Okay?
So you can say, sell my house and give the profits to the center.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Stocks and bonds. Is there anybody here who's 70 and a half? I want to tell you about a new way to make a gift right now. Anybody here 70 and a half? If you're 70 and a half and you have an IRA, you can make a gift without having to take the income by doing what's called a charitable distribution. It can be up to $100,000. It will count as part of your mandatory distribution for the year, but you don't have to pay income taxes on it. So it's a good thing. It's called an IRA charitable rollover, and after the work of a lot of people in the charitable giving business, that has just been made permanent about 5 months ago by the federal government. So it's now a permanent way to give for people who are required to take a distribution from their IRA.
So that's 70 years and 6 months. Is it any time after that? Or is there one day you can do that?
From then on.
From then on, okay.
All right. And there's a lot of other sentences after that that you have to adhere to. Nothing's that easy, but it is a great way to give if you don't need that money and you don't want to pay taxes on it, because you have to take it. You have to take it. Remember that guy that I told you about that wanted to get all the money out of his estate and that $500,000? And he made himself trustee of the trust, and then he didn't take any money out of it. He didn't give him, the trustee has to, authorize the company to send him a distribution, and he didn't do that. And he said, I got a tax bill for the money I didn't get. I said, yeah, that's right. Did you read the document I gave you when I sent you the trust to read before you signed it? He said, no. I said, yes. Because it's a charitable trust. If you set up something like that that's going to pay you income and you don't take it, because you got a big tax deduction, then you're going to have to pay taxes on the money anyway. Okay? Little weird little things in the law, and there are hundreds of those. I can't talk all about them all. Ma'am?
In a charitable trust, is there a maximum set amount that you
as your annual payment? Is there a
Maximum amount, is there a set amount? Is it 25,000 a year?
Not that I know of. I mean, it's a percentage of what you put in that you get back every year. That's our next half hour. Okay, so that was, go back one step. That was what to give and how to give. So these are some of the things that are tax benefits that we'll be talking about. We're going to start with bequests. Okay? A simple bequest is very easy to write. I leave, what's your name? Crystal, 10% of my estate. 10% of everything that's left. But I leave the center, 25%. And I leave my wife, 80%. Oh wait, that's more than 100%. Well, you can't do that, okay? But that's an easy way to divide up your estate, in percentages. And why would I recommend percentages instead of flat amounts?
Because it fluctuates.
My estate's going to look like this. It's growing, 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 and then it's going to level off, and then it's going to go like that. Okay? Because I'm going to be spending it going fly fishing in Australia and stuff. Yeah, he wishes. Okay, but anyway, so a percentage is the same piece for everybody that you've made a decision about. And what that does is allows you to preserve your decisions for a little bit longer. And when you go in to adjust your will, if you feel the need to adjust the percentages, you can. Your attorney will take you through that. But when you say, in my case, I'm going to leave $500,000 to John and Barbara Center, and $500,000 to my wife, and $500,000 to each of my children, and $500,000 to, I don't know, somebody else. Why don't I have $500,000? Okay, so everybody's going to be confused and pretty disgusted and arguing about it. But he really loved me the most. You know, he really did. Dad loved me the most, so I get the $500,000. But it's not $500,000. I mean, I could leave you $2.5 million, but if I don't have it, and that's what happens when you leave amounts, because I might have decided to leave 50 to somebody, and I live to be 95, I'll be lucky if there's 50 left. But if I left 5%, then it would be 5% of 50 instead of 5% of the $500,000.
In the will, you have to identify each thing. For instance, if you have life insurance policies and the beneficiaries are already listed on that, do you have to list those? Do you have to list all your funds and separate those? Do you have to list?
I would list them. I would list all of that stuff where it asks you to list it in the book, and because each state is a little different. But I can tell you right now that your IRA and your insurance are not part of your estate, so you use that through a beneficiary assignment with the company. Okay. Now you can flow it to your estate if you want, but you really don't need to. But I would list all of that stuff for my attorney to say, you know, in this state, you have to put this in, or you don't have to put it in, because it is different. Okay. Is that fair? Okay. Okay. So, so bequests. Let's talk some more about bequests. You can make a bequest that people would refuse. You can make a bequest to somebody who dies before you do. Okay? What happens? Depends on what you say. So let's go to up about there. Can you scroll? Let's talk about, we're going to go to about bequests. And the reason I'm taking you through all this clicking is so when you get here, you'll have been here, you know. One of the easiest gifts to make, okay? And then there's a video there you can look at. So options, specific dollar amount, percentage, balance or residue, and how to make beneficiary designations. That's what we've been talking about with insurance policies and IRAs, okay? So you can click there, or you can actually click there and go to the same page called Bequest Language. We're going to spend 15 minutes talking about this. Okay? Types of bequests. We talked about a specific bequest, $10,000. Aunt Harriet's painting of the seagull at the beach, you know. A list of stuff. Okay. I have a friend in the business does the same thing I do for another organization, and he has a program called Grandma's Teapot. And he gives everybody a set of labels that says this goes to, and they're sticky.
Mm-hmm.
And because his grandma died and didn't tell anybody who she wanted her teapot to go to. This was not a valuable teapot. It was probably worth less than that crystal I talked about. But each and every one of her 14 grandchildren was taught with great ceremony how to make tea with that teapot. It was her thing, was making tea. Okay? And every one of those kids wanted, guess what? Can I have Grandma's teapot? So it's this Paul Jonas, rest his soul, said, so I'm going to create this program called Grandma's Teapot and give people a set of labels that they can just stick this on. This goes to Bill, this goes to Mary, this goes to whoever, to take care of that so that they know. Right? So get yourself a set of labels. You don't need Paul to do that. Right? Specific bequests. Percentage bequests we talked about. 10% of my estate. Or 10% of the residual of my estate. Okay? I may leave my house to somebody, I may leave my IRA to somebody, you know, but whenever all of that stuff's given away, there's probably a residual. Okay? Because you got to have something left to pay for your final arrangements. Any final costs? And so you can say, whoops, how did I make that go? The residual bequest is the balance. Okay? And you can divide that up. If you don't want to make a big decision in a will you're writing down, for example, you can say, okay, I leave half to my wife, okay? In my case, it better be all of it. And I leave half to my wife and 10% to each of my kids. Well, what's left? I got 3 kids. There's 20% left, right? Okay? And 20% to be divided equally among my 3 favorite charities. Okay? Residual. It's what's left after I did the big ones. Okay? You probably use better language. Forgive me. I saw you going, where's this guy? Where did you get that language? Okay? So, and then a contingency. So, you can make this as complicated as you want, you know. And so, I'm going to leave 10% to Harry, okay? And then the last sentence is, and if Harry dies before I do, give it to his wife Sally, because it does not go to their heirs. It goes whoever you say it goes to, okay? Or it goes back into the residual if nobody claims it.
Is the languaging the same for a trust and a will, or is it different languaging?
Pretty much. Pretty much. Okay? So you see all the balls you got in the air, and it all has to add up to 100%. And if you have trouble getting it up to 100%, then put it all in a residual. Makes it easy. Yes, ma'am.
Could you do a delayed bequest? If I were to die first and I wanted to leave everything to my husband, but when he died, I wanted a portion to go because...
Do you trust your husband?
So, but-
Don't answer that question
So is
here.
there a
Answer it
place
up here.
where you put that so that it's, again, documented? If I wanted to say.
My wife and I have a deal that, if one of us goes first, then we're each going to carry out the other one's wishes around the distribution, because we both also made an agreement that kids don't get anything till we're working on it. So that's just the way we planned it. So we've agreed to carry that out. And you know what? If my wife wants to do something different with it, then I'm not going to prevent her from doing it. Okay? But, you know, she's pretty solid. But there are ways that you can do exactly that. But boy, now you really better use an attorney, okay? Because something like that is easily contested, especially by a spouse. Because, you know, if you're if you're a person that doesn't like guns and you want to give it to somebody, some other organization, and your husband's the president of the NRA, you may have an argument about that. And if he's your husband, he has kind of a special, I'm not trying to kick you, has a sort of a special closeness to your estate. So I would make those things really clear. What we're after here is clarity, okay? It's your stuff. What do you want to do with it? Right? So those are the kinds of bequests. Now roll down and we'll look at how to say it. There you go. So let's go to percentage bequest, and we'll use that. Now you notice here a really interesting thing. In every one of these, and you can just copy these and paste them into your will. Not a problem. And the Science of Mind Foundation is listed in every one. Well, I got to write these, so I'm biased. Now, you put in the name of the organization or the person, okay? And here, for an organization, this is absolutely key. Federal tax ID. You have a federal tax ID. Does everybody know what it is?
Social Security number.
Y'all get that?
That freaks me out.
Why? Why? Why would you want the tax ID?
I was going to ask if that's an EIN number.
Yes. It's an EIN, federal tax ID number. Same as for an organization. Same as your Social Security number is your federal tax ID number for a person. Why? Why?
Make sure it goes to the right organization.
There are 400 CSLs in this country.
Make sure it goes to the right organization.
And make sure it goes to the right organization, because I'll tell you what, I don't know why you would, but you might change the name of the organization. And I hope you don't, but you might move in 50 years, because you're going to need, there's not enough space for 12,000 people. Okay?
Thank you.
But this doesn't change. So get it and put it in there, okay? It could become not a religious organization any longer, I suppose. Yes, they would have to reincorporate, absolutely. Could be. But I spend a lot of time because UCSL, ICSL, and UCRS merged into CSL. And I do the estates for CSL, part of my job. Okay? I work for the foundation, separate corporation, but we do that for them. Okay? And most of the estates are 30 years old. They're made out to ICSL or UCRS. And I have a set of documents that I send to attorneys who say, is this you? Are you the guys I'm supposed to write the check to? And so I send, and those are all documents created by the Secretaries of State of California and Colorado about the mergers that took place so that they know that either the CSL Federal Tax ID or the Science of Mind Foundation Tax ID, yes, is the organization that they're looking for with an independent documentation track that they can follow and be confident that they're doing the right thing, because the state attorney managing a state has held some pretty high standards in most states. Okay? So you get the idea: residual, percentage, contingent. Right? Go on down below. Here's something that I bring up with some reservation. I think the wisest thing to do when you're leaving money to an organization, and if you're going to join, and I hope you all join, where are those papers, by the way? I hope you all join the Mountain Legacy Society and sign this document that's coming around and say, I'm going to put the center in my will. You don't have to say how much it is. You don't have to say what it is. I'm going to put you in my will. And then the center is going to do the most lovely thing for you. They're going to honor you and thank you for doing that. And they're going to trust you to do what's right, because you said you were going to do this. They're not going to ask for a copy of your will, although you can give it to them if you want. But they're going to put on the wall, on the other side of this wall, you won't be able to see this dot, but on the other side of on the alcove right there in the donation station, your resident artist, John Waterhouse, is going to paint a beautiful mountain for the Mountain Legacy Society, and for every person, not couple, every person, because every person has a will, who says, I'm going to do that. I want to be part of the Mountain Legacy Society. I believe in the future of this organization. I want to be here in 50 or 100 years, because this teaching means that much to me, and it's done that much for my spiritual growth. They're going to put a butterfly on that wall with your name on it.
Barbara's got a sample here.
And the beautiful part of all of this is the concept that they've come up with, which I think is just marvelous. I'm going to share the idea with everybody. You go ahead.
So we've been talking for weeks about this idea of putting the center in your will so that we will have money throughout eternity to support this. Am I on, Brazy?
No, I think it's off.
Do you have the button on?
Check the button.
It's orange. And because you will have transitioned at that time, we chose to go with the model of the caterpillar to the butterfly. So we have found these beautiful butterflies. They come in 4 colors, and you'll have your name engraved on it that says you are a founding member of the Mountain Legacy Society of Center for Spiritual Living, Asheville. Now, all the paper in front of you says is, I promise that by the end of 2016, I will put the center in my will in one of these ways. And you can change that way. You have no legal documentation that you need to give us. If you fill out this paper and sign it, we believe you, and we will put a butterfly with your name up on the wall. And then after you transition, it'll go through probate and attorneys, and we will be notified that whatever it is you chose to leave the center is available to the center and being sent to us. And I think it's a really cool statement of affirmation that you will have lots to leave, and so you can use your estate wisely in a way that supports the people that you love and the ideas that you love. I think it's a great thing to be a part of, that 10 years down the road you'll be able to say, I was a founding member of this Mountain Legacy Society of Center for Spiritual Living, Asheville. Nobody knows what you're going to leave us. Nobody knows but you and your attorney and spirit and anybody else that you tell, so you're not having to demonstrate anything other than you sign this paper that says, I promise that I will do that by the end of the year in some way, shape, or form. If you want to see Pete Henry, or if you want to see, Ann, what's your attorney's name?
Cynthia Oliver.
Cynthia Alleman. They both have cards that you can get before you leave today, or someone else. And John and I simply put an addendum to our will. It was reasonably priced, it was quick, and it just said 10% tithe off the top because we believe in tithing, and so we're going to tithe to the center on our way out. And then you'll get one of these butterflies up on the wall with a beautiful mountain scene symbolizing that you have transitioned into the greater you and that you leave behind some kind of financial acknowledgement of your spiritual home. Devon.
So, can couples do that together? So, or is it a separate thing? So if Rodney and I
You can have a butterfly together, but you have to fill out your papers separate.
Gotcha.
Good. Yeah. But you get your butterfly together, you bet. You're together. We could put on it Devadni if you want.
Devadni is good. That's good. That's good.
And if you want to do it anonymously, you don't have to have your name out there for everybody to see. Mayor Martin.
Where on here is your federal ID tax number? Because that needs to be on it.
Well, you're going to fill these out and give them back to us. I'll tell you what, I'll contact each and every one of you and give you our tax ID number through this.
Yeah, your tax ID number goes in your bequest language in your will or estate.
This is your give me a butterfly paper. I want to be a butterfly paper. And we had a meeting last night. We've already gotten some in. And so for all of you who choose to fill this paperwork out today, then we'll contact you this coming week and give you our federal tax ID number. And anyone who fills this out before the end of the year will be a founding member. But in a few weeks, we're going to order the first group of butterflies with your names on it. And we'll also give you a little chance to see what you want to put on it, other than founding member. If there's something, this one happens to have a Bible verse on it. If you want a Bible verse, I would go ahead and put that on, but if you want something else, we'll do that too. Is that what you wanted, Ken?
Yes, thank you.
So I encourage you to fill this paper out, because even if you think that you don't have a lot of assets, you will. When you're in this teaching, you're going to have assets, and you transition, and there's going to be something that needs to be done with it, and we would just be very grateful and very honored if you would include this center in the disbursements of your life savings once you have transitioned, because you love it here and because we love you back.
I like to call a bequest the gift you can make without it affecting your lifestyle, because it's not cash. And the other thing about a bequest that makes it very safe is that it's revocable. You can rewrite your will. Right? Now, if you create a trust, it might be a little different. There are irrevocable trusts. Okay? That's what we're going to talk about next. Okay? But the really cool thing about programs like this, and yours is not the first, lots of organizations have been doing this for a long time, is that it feels terrific. Right? If it doesn't feel good, don't do it. But I guarantee you, you're going to feel good about it. Okay? So let's go back up here, because we're in our last half hour, and this will be short. Let's go back up here to gift options. Okay? How to give. Okay. And go down to charitable remainder unit trust. Just click more. Okay, so I'm going to try to explain this in a much less complicated way than that. Okay? But again, we've got Science of Mind Foundation, but that can be CSL, Science of Mind Foundation, CSL Asheville, okay, or any other nonprofit organization. Okay? But this is a trust. You create it, okay? You create the trust. And I have an attorney that will write the original version, and I pay that attorney, okay? But if you go forward on something like this without your own attorney, then that's really dangerous. You should always have an attorney. review any trust that you create or is created for you by a nonprofit organization, okay? Now, I'm a really good attorney, but you know who pays her? The foundation. Okay? So who is she going to be beholden to? Me. Okay? So that's why I say, have your own. Okay? You don't do these lightly. These are not inexpensive to create. Okay, so I'm going to try to do this in a way that was really interesting. I thought that was a table. Glad I didn't set my water on that. So let's do this. I was in one of these sessions and they had a big plate of cookies and I used the plate of cookies to demonstrate this. Okay? And then I got to eat the cookies. I'm not going to eat the paper. Okay? So all of these are different permutations of a charitable trust. Okay? They're all charitable trusts, work a little bit differently, and the differences are interesting, but we don't have to go into all of them. So here's the amount of money you're going to put in this trust. Right? It's not worth doing this for under about $10,000. But this is how you take non-performing assets and turn them into performing assets for the rest of your life, or certainly most of it. Okay? So here's what happens. You take this much money. Okay? How much money do you want to put in your charitable remainder unit trust?
10 billion.
Would you like to be on my board? How about let's start with $100,000? Just you can do it for 10. I wouldn't mess with it for less than that. You can do it for 10. Okay, so think about that as a gift, because you wouldn't do this if you weren't charitable. Now you're going to get some pretty good benefits, but since it's charitable and set up under the charitable laws of our country, it was designed to benefit charities. So you want to have charitable intent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to envision this in half, okay? Because the way the laws are set up around charitable trusts is that half of the money, if you live to your mortality rate. You know what mortality rate is? Okay. It's a guess based on all of the information in the mortality tables about when you're going to die based on your age today. Not your health condition, not whether you were a smoker, not if you're currently ill. None of that is in the calculation. It is based on millions and millions of people on what they think you're going to live to. Okay? And that's going to determine the interest rate that you're going to get back from this particular trust. Okay? So the interest rate's based on the $100,000. So let's say you're 90. What do you think that interest rate's going to be?
Low.
Low. Wrong. It's going to be high. The older you are, why? Less time between your current age and the age that the gurus think you're going to die. Okay? So remember, this is for a lot of people. So it's going to set a rate based on all of their magic that's probably over 8% if you're 90. So if you had $100,000 worth of money markets and you could turn it into 8%, would that be a good thing?
Yes.
What do money markets get today?
0.5%.
0.5%. So if you're sitting on a bunch of cash or cash equivalents and you've been holding on to them, you know, with a lot of feeling because somebody left them to you or something, you can turn them into dollars. Okay. Now, what will happen to that money after we write a trust and you create it and name yourself as trustee or name a child as trustee, we're going to take that money and invest it. for you. Okay? We're going to invest it long-term in the stock market and the bond market, okay? And no matter how much it earns in that market, we're going to pay you what we said we would pay you. Now, why would we do that?
Because it'll probably make more. Because it will probably make more.
Right, and because we know when you're going to die. Well, we don't, but we think we know when you're going to die. And if you get enough people in one of these programs, it works out pretty well for the nonprofit and for the people, okay? Because you've given up an asset, part of your life savings, that you've decided that you don't need and you like to give away, okay? And so say you live a few years beyond the years that the accountants have given you to live. What happens to the money in here? Remember, we're paying you out every year from the earnings and the corpus, okay? I continue paying it until you die. When you're done, you're done. Okay? And I keep the rest. So the longer you live, the more money you get. Right? So, but what's in it for the charity?
Yeah.
What's left of their half?
Mhm.
Okay? Am I making this clear? I'm going to pay you a little bit every year. Okay? And all of this may go away, or all of this and some of this may go away. Okay? But there will always be a remainder of some kind. In 90% of the cases, 99% of the cases, there will always be a remainder. And that's what's called a remainder, charitable remainder trust, because the remainder, when you're gone, goes to the charity that you've designated for it. Right? Does that make, am I making sense here? Is that, I tried to make it easy. Did I make it hard? No, the money goes into the trust immediately. You fund the trust. That's how you get it started. Right.
Whatever is left.
Right, and then you get payments.
You get your regular payments, and whatever is left after you pass, then goes to the
The charity goes to the remainder. It's called the remainder money, actually. But yeah, whoever that entity is, it's got to be a charity, or it's not a charitable trust. Now, and so all of these things are different ways of using that law or that set of laws to take non-performing assets and turning them into performing assets, mostly in the end of your life, for your retirement. Yes?
Would you say that that's equivalent to taking out a reverse mortgage on your home?
It's nothing like a reverse mortgage on your home because you're not providing collateral. You've given it away. You've given this money away. And by the way, you got a nice tax deduction for a part of that gift. For the part that they think you're going to get, I can write you a tax receipt for that as a gift. And for about, and it varies, age and the interest rate, but you're going to have a fair amount, in addition to the tax deduction, you're going to have a fair amount of tax-free income over the years. Part of it's taxable, part of it's not taxable, roughly in about how much you gave away. Yes.
I'm confused between this tax-free income we're getting. Is that usable cash for us to live on?
Yes, you're getting a distribution annually that is money for you to do with whatever you wish.
And that's not a salary that you're getting for managing, if you're the trustee, the trustee.
The trustee cannot be paid. The investment, the people who handle your investments can be paid, but the trustee cannot be paid. Trustee is usually you or a family member, okay? You, the donor, is the person who's getting the annual cash distributions. We're writing you a check.
It's a gift,
Mm-hmm.
even though it's your fund.
It's a trust payment, but it's not a gift. And part of it is taxable, but not all of it.
So what trusts, what type of trusts have the least amount of tax burden or tax liability?
Well, there's a lot of different kinds of trusts. Golly. Unit trust, remainder trust are all about the same. Okay, some of it depends on what your tax bracket is. I mean, you could have a completely different tax bracket than you, and so your tax burden is going to be higher because your income is already higher. Okay. Does that help at all? It's not a big difference. I mean, there are some of these things that get really complicated that can be enormous tax breaks for your grandchildren, for example. But that's a whole other story. Have you done any lead trusts? Very few people do it. But it's really fun to watch how much money people can save by doing one of those.
All this tax stuff you're talking about is based on the IRS, right?
Yes, these are all IRS regulations.
So when the IRS goes down in something and they restructure their whole deal, I mean, they'll still be around, but it'll be restructured. Is this all going to get changed?
If you establish a trust today, it is legal for the life of the trust because it is a legal entity that has been created.
And it'll stand regardless of what happens.
And it'll stand. They might change the income tax laws and then increase all of our income tax rates for X income. They may double that. And, you know, you're getting income in that year, so then you would have to pay that additional money, but we all would. And we'd probably vote those guys out.
Yeah, it's not the IRS that does that, Congress does that.
Yeah.
If the IRS is in charge of that, they get all your money.
Well, IRS regulations are when these laws are written, they identify the burden. Okay, so the IRS can't really control that. I mean, the feds are who increases your taxes. The IRS carries it out. Yeah.
So in reading that first bullet, it says receive income for life for a term of up to 20 years or life plus a term of up to 20 years. So does that mean that at my age now, let's say I technically have another 40 years to live before I'm going to die, but I end up living another 60 or 80 years. Does that cap at 20 years beyond the 40 years that I am currently allowed, or does that continue on until I do actually achieve transition?
Not any unit trust. A unit trust is a set period. It can be life or life plus. Okay. A remainder trust is just life. So it's the difference, one of the differences between a trust and a unit trust. But I put it up there for the diagram, actually. Can you roll down to the diagram? Because all of this thing I did with the paper was to show that you put in stock or cash, and the donor gets the payments, and the organization gets the remainder. That's the easy way to do it. And if you set this thing up and you died immediately, you'd get both pieces of paper.
Thank you very much.
So, yes.
I'm sorry. This is not related to a charitable trust, but Kevin and I set up a living trust probably 15 years ago. And we had the center included in that trust then. And in January, I checked with my attorney because we wanted to tweak a few things. And he said that that is no longer viable if we're not living in the state in which we created it. So all this time, I thought we had a living trust set up, and indeed we do not.
Pete, help me out here.
Is it state by state when you do something like that?
For the most part, those a trust would need to be specific. For the most part, a trust would need to be specific to the estate in which you are living. So unless there are certain provisions that say it's going to move, or most likely it would need to be updated for the state in which you're living.
Is that why a will is superior?
Will is also state to state. Each state has their own individual requirements.
But if you write your will in North Carolina, and it's all done, and you move to Florida, and you die, are you in any jeopardy?
Yes, you are. If your North Carolina will does not meet Florida's requirements, then you would be subject to what are called intestate succession laws. Those are the specific laws that each state has set up to say, if you don't have a will, here's what we've decided happens to your stuff. So unless you want the state legislature to make those decisions for you, it's always better to have your own plan.
Marco has a question in the back.
Ken, when you said that the bequest term is for life in this charitable trust, do they mean the actuarial table life or your actual life?
Your life.
Okay.
You had multiple.
Yes, I worked for an organization that provided gift annuities, which is a charitable remainder trust with one minor change, okay? But a gift annuity is much easier to write, and we had people that wrote a new one every year. We had one lady that had done $10,000 every year for 15 years. And the benefit of a gift annuity, which I can't offer you, is, but other organizations can, is that it's really easy to set up because the laws are so simple and straightforward, but it's also very restrictive because it's a very narrow kind of document. But you'll see all kinds of promotions about charitable gift annuities from other nonprofits who are bigger and can take the risk. We can't take that risk just yet.
So, just to clarify my question, say that I would like to have a charitable remainder trust, 3 different ones for 3 different charities, as me as the donor. Can I do that? Or
You can, but you can also do that in one, because you can have 3 different beneficiaries in any given trust. You can divide up the remainder any way you like.
So I just want to reserve a few minutes for us to actually fill out these pages if we want to, and to gather them back up and to do a blessing on them. So I understand that we've got questions, but if you are planning on signing this paper that just says, I promise that sometime before the end of the year, I'm going to take care of this, and in some way, shape, or form include Center for Spiritual Living Asheville in my will, and it's got check marks there about insurance policies and things like that.
Or in your insurance policy, or in your IRA,
Right.
any of those
Any
things.
of those check marks, and then sign it. We would like to take them back up and do a blessing on them, and then contact you about our EIN number and look at
Does anyone need a pen?
ordering butterflies and putting them up on the wall. So I didn't want to just think we handed you a piece of paper and, you know, you can use it to make an airplane and things like that. We'd really love to bless it while we're together. What?
Can you hit that contact us? Can you click on contact us? No, up there. Look at that happy guy. He looks so young. You can call me, that's my cell number. You can call me. My email address is here somewhere. You're on this site. Here. But you can give me a call, leave me a message, or if I'm in the office, you can find me. And go down a little bit. Where's the email part here? Oh, and if you put that in and submit that, I get that email. You can ask me any question you want, okay?
Look, you have another tie, it's red. Tie, necktie.
I do. I have a couple. So I'm happy to help. Okay? I am not an attorney, and I am not an accountant. I'm a gift officer.
Thank you.
Okay? More questions? We'll keep filling your documents out, because what she didn't tell you is you can't get out of here until you fill it.
Breezy's got one in the back. All the way back.
Breezy.
I have a quick question in regards to, you said you could do 3 different, on the unit trust thing.
In a charitable trust, yeah.
Now, do they all have to be nonprofits, charities, or?
Yes.
Okay.
It is a charitable trust. You can set up family trusts that are not charitable and do the same thing. And either of these firms will be happy to help you do that. They're not going to bring similar tax benefits. There may be some tax benefits to them, but not for half of it like these. But. Okay, I'm good. Yep.
You mentioned way back about you continue living in your home.
Have you ever done a retained life, retained life estate?
Yes. You want me to speak then?
I can talk to you about it. Here's what you do. You want to stay in your home, okay? And you've made arrangements for health care and all of that stuff, okay? But you want to keep your home till you die, right? That's your goal, okay? Well, this is going to involve giving it away, okay? So you can't sell it and move up. You're going to give it away. And the idea is you give it to these guys now, and you retain what's called a life estate, which is a really nice phrase that says, I'm going to stay in this house. And so you get to live there and take care of it the same way you have. Okay? In other words, you've made this gift, and they now have the deed, okay? But in that deed, you have retained the right to live in it until you no longer need it. You actually write a contract about what that little phrase means, because it can be tricky. Okay? And you get to continue taking care of it. It doesn't come off the property tax rolls. You still have to pay insurance. You've got to fix the roof. Okay? You're expected to keep it up the way you have. But you just got a tax deduction for the value of that house minus the value of the amount of time you've retained. Again, set on those same mortality tables. You may outlive those. You're still going to stay there until you no longer need the house. So the financial benefit to you is a pretty large tax deduction that you can carry out over a number of years. Okay. Does everybody understand that? That's one of the more complicated ones. Pardon me?
No more.
Yes.
Unencumbered, yes.
Well, I mean, they might be willing to take that on. I wouldn't as a charity, so I say it should be unencumbered, yes.
So if you filled out your forms and you want to be included in the Mountain Legacy Society and have a butterfly and have your form blessed, you can take it home and go see your attorney and talk to people all you want. But if you have it now, I don't want to have you leave without being a blessed gift. So
go ahead and collect them. And while you're doing that, I just really want to thank you, Ken, for taking the time to come all the way to Colorado to teach us and to show us all of this important information.
Thank you.
We as a community are very grateful.
So many nice people.
Yeah, we do have some really good folk.
And I can stay for, 10 minutes or so.
Okay, all right.
If you have more questions.
What do you want to ask me?
When do we get to meet?
Yeah, I don't think our attorney, Pete, will leave. I think he'll stay here for a few minutes.
And the other lady.
Yeah, the other lady too. Okay, so Barbara's collecting those. Does anyone else have one they want to pass to us? Let it be known. She's coming around to get it. So what I want to tell you is we met, you've probably heard that we met last night with leadership. That was members of our board, members of our leadership council, and members and our practitioners that were available to come. It was a good group, and we had a little dinner, and we talked about all this. And we got really clear about the importance of this and how about moving forward. So then we wanted to invite any of you that were able to stay today. This will be a regular part of our community now, that we'll talk about our Legacy Society. If anybody passes in our community and leaves money, we'll acknowledge that in the community. As people join the Legacy Society over years, we'll acknowledge them for that, and they'll have a butterfly on the wall. I have no idea if that wall's big enough, but you know, hopefully it's not, and we'll keep this thing growing and prospering. This is a real statement of our maturity as a community. Last night, as we were completing this and we were collecting these forms, I had a memory. And indulge me, those of you that were here last night, I just want to say it again. 16 years ago, actually 17, maybe even 17 and a half years ago, we were out in a little place out in Fairview. Devon was there. I don't know that anybody else was there. Was Rodney there? Very cool. Ah, Crystal, you were there. That's very cool. So we had this dinner in our 30 by 30 room, and I had drawn a picture of what I envisioned this center to look like. And it's pretty much how the front is, except that now there's a third building. And I said, this is the home we envision. Can you support that? And as we were talking about it, there was a man in the back of the room. His name was Carol Thompson. He was an older gentleman who had recently had a stroke. And he really wanted to be there, and he insisted on speaking to us. His language wasn't really strong from the stroke, but he spoke very loudly and as clearly as he could, and we got what he said. What he said to us is, yes, build the building, but you're not building it just for you. You're not building it just for the people that will come when you start it in Asheville. You're building this for people that will be here 100 years from now. It was stunning. It stopped me cold. And I imagine that after I'm gone, and Barbara's gone, and frankly, after all of us are gone, in 100 years, or maybe that would be 80-something years now, that there would be people meeting on this sacred ground, finding their way in the idea of who they are as the presence of the divine. Wow, that's just amazing to me. And that my life and my choices could make a difference. And what I got was, what we're doing with this Mountain Legacy Society is exactly the same thing. We built the buildings, we borrowed the money, we're paying it back, but this is bigger. This means that far beyond us, people will get to learn the science of mind, to change their lives. Some of them will say it saves their lives. And we do that because we do this little thing of putting this into our will. Isn't that amazing? So it's important to me.
And I want to say that any of you who have not handed in your form, if you choose to fill it out and bring it to us, we will bless it. If you put it in the Sunday basket, we will bless it as it goes through the room. So you're not out the blessing. We just wanted to do this right now.
My heart is so full. I am so grateful. Grateful for these who join me and Barbara in knowing the greatest truth, that there is a presence and a power that dwells in us. Not near us, not over there somewhere. It dwells at the point of who we are. And that we use that power to live elegant, opulent, beautiful, richly love-filled lives. And we do that because we are learning who we are. And I receive these gifts, these butterfly orders, knowing that out of this, the love and the attention so greatly shows up at just the right time in just the right way to support the ongoing legacy of this teaching at this place in this world, touching the thousands of lives that are to be touched, knowing the truth for anyone and everyone, and that this helps make that happen for as long as it's supposed to happen, long beyond us into a greater world. I know that we're evolving as a people on planet Earth, and that this commitment, this choice, helps us do this in an extraordinary way. So my gratitude is deep, and abiding, knowing that we are the ones that are creating that better world right here and right now and for a very long time to come. So thank you, Spirit, for showing up as us and for all the good work that we do. And we bless it, and we know it's so in gratitude and love, as together we say. So it is.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you, Ken.
He's back there.
Thank you, Ken, for coming down to the North Carolina and for helping us be better with how we see our money. And I know that by the time we all transition, we will have very large estates and have had very rich and full lives. And that there is plenty for everyone. Thank you, Pete Henry. Thank you, Ann Johnson, who works for Cynthia Alleman. And I'm just very grateful that everyone came today. I love you all. Are you going to stay in the room? So Pete and Ann will stay in the room, and Ken's going to stay in the room. And I love you all very much. This is a big step for us.